Oh, to be back at the corner of 16th and Georgetown, my back in the day, month of May, home away from home.
Good evening to you. Thanks for joining us here
stop
on
by.
Fox 59.
3, 2, 1. It's race weekend, and there are no strangers at 16th and Crawfordsville Road.
Yeah, but you've got some of that on my feet.
And on YouTube, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button, and then do the opposite. If you're watching,
He's on it!
Hi, 59.
on YouTube. Today we get the great pleasure of speaking with an
Ask any veteran
Indianapolis
race fan what it was
television
like back
icon,
then,
one
and
of the
they'll
few
tell
people,
you nothing
in
like
this
it is
market who
today.
Been coming over here all my entire life,
See
you
him,
know.
or if you hear his name,
8:05 a.m.
everybody
Time for the
knows
first beer
that
of the
guy
season.
through the years, Russ
The night
McQuaid.
before the race
he
on
joins
Georgetown
us in
Road
our
was
studio
absolute-
today because we get to talk with Russ about a whole lot of things. I don't know anybody who probably knows more or who has more institutional knowledge on the streets and reporting than Russ McQuaid. Russ, hello.
Icon, survivor, underachiever, pick your own title.
You've been station's been on for 20 years now. You've 30
Long-
years.
30, yeah.
30 years, I shortened.
1991 is when the first newscast came on.
Station came on in 84, 91, first newscast. Then you showed up in 90.
October 93.
October 93. You have been on TV. I'm not going to say, but for longer than a lot of people have been alive.
32 years.
You're still here.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. Survivor, underachiever, pick your title.
You've literally been here since the station signed on, and now you're on the internet. We're doing this thing,
Yeah.
and on a streaming app. Did you ever think this is where TV, what you'd be doing?
Actually, in 18, 19, and 20, I did podcasts. We called them Indy Unsolved, and
You were ahead of your time.
they were investigative. We tackled some unsolved homicide cases, strung them together. We had a couple good seasons of that. So
You were ahead of your time. So now, we got this technology. It's time to launch the show again.
there you go.
You've been, how many mayors have you covered in Indianapolis?
Hudnut, Goldsmith, Peterson, Ballard, Hogsett. What's that, 5?
Mm-hmm.
And I missed Luger, but then I've got a couple mayors in there that did 12-year stints.
Mm-hmm. Hogsett working on it.
And Hudnut also. So, yeah, this goes back a ways. When I got here in 88, went to work for WIBC, and Fred Heckman, who was like the Walter Cronkite of Indianapolis. The man's a legend. And when I arrived in Indianapolis from Denver in 88, I could see this town was just getting ready to turn the corner. It was just getting ready to explode. And I figured I'm going to go along for that ride. So that was one of the things that attracted me to. And also when I came here, they hired me at WIBC. And he said, okay, and we're going to give you a contract. I go, contract? He goes, yeah. I go, so that means you got to pay me, right?
Mhm.
Because I'd, been in radio for a while, 12, 13 years before that. I had already had a whole career in radio before that and had been blown out a time or two on 2 weeks' notice or less. So I went, contract? Yeah, I'll come work for you guys. I was only going to stay here a year.
Mm-hmm.
I was either going to go to BBM or WJR in Detroit
Mm-hmm.
and continue doing big city radio. But then I started riding with the narcs and marrying women and buying houses.
I was going to say, so what changed?
Yeah.
What kept you here?
The fact that I was right on the cusp of things turning around in this town. And I also came to recognize that this town needed some good journalism. And I'd come out of Detroit and Denver, where they had some strong TV stations and some strong newspapers. When I came to Indianapolis, I did not necessarily find that here. And I've always said to people, I looked around, figured somebody with just this much talent could really do well in this town. Luckily enough, I had exactly this much talent.
Well, a little bit more than that. How does one, you use the word survive, which I use that a lot too. How do you survive in this industry that long and at one station and one market? This is the, technically the third. I've been at the ABC station and the Fox station and the CBS station. There's a number of people in this building who I say we should just start a bus line from Meridian Street because we either used to work at 13 or 6 or at Wish. We're still here,
Mhm.
but you and Bob Donaldson are the only people who have been in the same station. How?
We are the last. This model will not be sustained after Donaldson and I and Wilkes go. You aren't going to have Chris Wright. You aren't going to have that because the media people become interchangeable with corporate ownerships, and having history in a town so you can put things in context, and also the connections you have, that's going to slide away because it becomes more disposable. Management becomes more transitory, um, and people move on. Young people move on. Young people are not going to stick around, at least not at the station. They may stick in town, but they aren't going to stick in news.
Mhm.
And as a result, they're just going to move on. So having a handful of folks like us who are still around, who can put things in context, who can recall, who have those sources, who can say, we've been down this road before, I can tell you the history of it and how this is done, that's not going to continue. That's not sustainable with the business. I hope TV news is sustainable,
Mhm.
in the years to come, because it's got to come from somewhere.
Mhm.
But we've seen what happened to newspapers in the last 15 years. Um, but being a survivor, how do you stick around? A lot of times you fight back at management, you fight
Mhm.
back at corporate over 30 years who have come in with their own ideas and have wanted to dismantle and destroy this place. And I know I've been on the chopping block more than a few times,
Mhm.
and I'm still here. Well, the secret is just about every time they wanted to fire me, I would go out and break a big story, and then they go, "Oh, God, we can't fire him now. He just broke a big story. We got to keep him around."
What would be what? Why would anybody want to fire Russ McQuaid? Is Russ McQuaid just suddenly too expensive?
Oh, no. Russ McQuaid pissed off too many people, usually inside this building or whatever building we were working in. So, yeah, there were some bosses, but, towing the line and such.
Mhm.
And if you've watched me on TV for 30 years, you've seen me go out and chew on some people outside the building. Sometimes that comes inside the building too,
Mhm.
but managed always out because the work proves the case. I
Mhm.
mean, if you turn out the work and you're right, then, and plus there's also a certain acknowledgement of like, oh God, this guy's really the face of Fox 59.
Mhm.
You see him walk down the street, people know that's Fox 59 in person in their neighborhood. Plus, he comes up with stories nobody else has those types of connections. Plus, he's also able to mentor the ever changing cast of young people coming through here,
Mhm.
and producers and photographers and desk people. This guy kind of proves his value. We need him to stick around because we know we can turn to him on a moment's notice and we're going to get a problem solved. So, going back to your original question, why would they want to fire Russ McQuaid, Fox 59? Dude, get out of list.
You in that 30 years, like you said, I don't know if if you were even able to keep track of how many anchors you've worked with and meteorologists. I mean, the
Yeah.
list goes on. It's cool to be a part. When you look back, you can say you're a part of the legacy. But like you said, there's you and Bob Donaldson are the only ones who can pretty much say we were here from day one
And we built this
in the
place.
trenches.
I mean, we built this place. When I first went to work at Fox 59, we were down on Meridian Street in an old radio station
Hmm.
upstairs. Chris Wright was our meteorologist. He literally had a closet in a hallway he was working out of. And I walked in that newsroom, and the entire newsroom, and we did one newscast a night at 10 o'clock,
Hmm.
was just a handful of desks and a handful of people to look at what Fox 59, CBS 4, Nexstar, our web has come to now. And it's always gratifying to see new talent come in and look around and go, wow, this is the mothership.
Hmm.
Well, we built this.
Hmm.
We're the guys that, put it on the line and kept it alive and kept it going through all its iterations to get to this point. So it's like, yes, I'm proud of it, and I'm glad you've got a good, stable place to work. And we are a behemoth, and we are churning out news, 15 hours a day or
Hmm.
whatever. Going back to when we were doing it a half hour a day, we've come a long way.
Did you um ever think that you would stay here this long?
I didn't at the start, and
Mhm.
I thought I was going to Detroit, and then things started working out in this town, and I found actually Indianapolis to be very affordable, a great community, and I took a hard look at it, and I thought, "Can I make a difference in Chicago or Detroit?" Maybe I could,
Mhm.
but I also thought, "Man, those are some pretty tough nuts to crack." They are big and entrenched. Whereas if I stay in Indianapolis, I think I can make a difference in
Mhm.
this town,
Doing your own
whether
thing.
it's a difference going and sitting on people's couches and telling their stories and giving them a sense of hope that somebody's paying attention, or having the impact where I can like walk into a press conference and the mayor or the governor or somebody's going to look up and kind of roll their eyes and go, "We're in for a long day now." But it can make a difference, where I can talk to legislators, city, county councilmen, people from across the state, law enforcement from across the state, and I can actually get something accomplished, help move us forward, and help turn us into a better community. And I like to think maybe I'm 2% responsible for that just by hanging in there and keep working at it.
What would you say is the hayest of heydays in TV? Because I don't know if we're in it now.
Yeah, you know what? It continues to evolve. We continue to get better. The technology continues to get better. We had a real good crew here about 10 years ago, a real good crew of young people, and a lot of them went to Chicago,
Mhm.
Detroit, Denver, went to some major markets. We had some solid people here. One of our guys, Charlie DeMar, at
Mhm.
CBS
Mhm.
out of Chicago. We literally discovered him in Fort Wayne one day. I said, "Come here, kid. I'm going to show you how this is done." And
Mhm.
he was great. Um, but then on the other hand, 10 years ago, we didn't have what you're able to do here with this. So it continues to evolve and change and it reaches more people. It's not static, it's dynamic. And if more people are experiencing Fox 59, our product, on their cell phones or through social media, good deal. God bless them. We'll, however you get in the door, we'll try to deliver the information you need.
It's the future of the industry, of course, is in question every day
Hmm.
with the way technology. It's literally why we're doing this thing, because as you said, everybody has changed. So it's. I think you'll only know when you look back, like, all right, that was a really good time. I don't know when you're in the moment. Do you realize that like we're living good right
Yeah. Oh yeah, you do. And and you see for the losses we have when somebody moves on,
now?
we
Hmm.
bring in Rafael Sanchez,
Hmm.
who I was lobbying for to bring in here, and some of our behind the scenes people over the years that we have been able to poach and bring in from other stations that just didn't value them, and they were every bit as solid as we knew they were, and they helped lift the game, lift everybody's game, lifts all boats. So yeah, there were a lot of times, and over a lot of years, there were a lot of times there was discouragement
Hmm.
within this building, and I would always say to people, I'd rather be us than them.
Hmm.
And look what we're doing.
Hmm.
And the deal is we can still pull this off. And a lot of it has to do with your commitment to your fellow worker and your staff and to the product. And a lot of it over 30 years has been conversations among us going, I don't care what corporate or management is doing, we're still gonna do a good job,
Hmm.
because you're not working for them. They write your check,
Hmm.
but you're working for the people out there who are watching you, who are calling you, who need help with their problems. Those are the people you're working for. Remember that, because if you decide you're doing it for your bosses and for corporate, forget about it, because that's never gonna make you happy, and there's always gonna be a demand, and they are never gonna understand what you're doing. It's like when you walk out of this building and people come up. What's interesting is people come up to me, and I've been doing this in this town since '88, and
Hmm.
people will come up to me. They'll say, "Man, Russ McQuaid." I go, "How you doing, man?" They say, "You remember me?" I go, "Try me." He
Hmm.
goes, "My brother was so and so, and you covered his murder in '98." And I'll go, "Hawville, Tuesday night, summer, yellow Cadillac." And they go, "How do you remember that?" And I go, "Dude, I remember." And it really makes a difference to him that somebody spent the time, paid him the respect, listened to him. And I'll have people say to me, literally, "Man, until my mother died a couple years ago, We would always have at Thanksgiving an empty place at the table for my brother, cousin, whoever didn't make it. And in our prayers, my mom would always remember you and Fox 59 because you guys came out at a really bad time in our lives,
Mm-hmm.
and you talk to us and you listen to us and you treat us with respect. And I get that all the time in this town. And that's, when you ask, why do you stick around? It's for that connection because it's important to those folks that somebody pay attention to them. Plus, they, also, and they know, and I have people call me up and say, man, I got another tip on a different story, or, I know this guy and another cousin, or I'll go out and find them and I'll go, dude. And I go, yeah, I know this guy too. All right. Talk to me about him. Tell me your story.
How do you not take any of that home with you? Because I've been to a lot of the same scenes and seen a lot of the things you have, but you've done it for far longer than I have. But I've seen some ugly things and dead bodies and people on their worst days, and that mother scream when she arrives on the scene of her kid getting shot. I remember all those things too. And for a while there was a time where I felt like I was doing a lot of them, and it was really bothering me. How do you keep that stuff, like, you don't forget it, but it doesn't bother
Because you sit down and you look that mom or you look somebody in the eye and go, dude, this is a bad deal.
you?
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry about this. I can't change the past, but maybe I can change the future. Tell me your story. We'll put it on TV. Detectives might get a phone call. We might find out who did this to you. But what you do is you just get down to that basic level where you're not afraid to have a conversation with somebody. You look them in the eye and go, dude, you're having a worse day than I am ever going to have. And if you want to slam that door in my face, you will not hurt my feelings
Mm-hmm.
because I know it's, you're just mad. You're
Mm-hmm.
not mad at me. On the other hand, if you want to tell the world what a cool guy your brother or your son was, I'm the guy you tell,
Mm-hmm.
so I can tell everybody else. And you lock in on 'em at that very basic level, and you meet people where they are. You understand what they're going through. You have empathy for them, and you go, I'm going to do the best I can for you, ma'am. To some degree, some people treat us like the water company or the
Mm-hmm.
electric company utility.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you should come out and tell my story.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Just because, you know, no, I'm not the water company. I'm not going to do that. But then on the other hand, that shows their comfort level with us. It's like, I've watched you on TV. You're almost like a member of the family. Will you come out and tell my story? I've had people who said, if their son died on Sunday and I didn't get there till Tuesday, and they say, well, we thought you'd be here on Monday. We thought you guys didn't care about us. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, no, ma'am, I care, but I thought you guys were having a really bad day. I didn't want to get here too early. And they said, no, we've been waiting for you to come because we want people to know and we want to tell the story. I said, yes, ma'am. What can I do for you?
Earlier, you talked about survival through all that, but you also just kind of laid out some of the results. So I just want to remind people that uh, you can be right, but also have the results, because that's what kept you here. Being right doesn't just always keep you. You got to have something to back it up.
Yeah.
And so all those relationships that you've built is what backs it up. What is the Russ McQuaid style? Where does it come from? Because we all have a different style. When we a
Mhm.
unique style. There's some
Yeah.
of us, I've got my style. I got my hats as well. I've got an iconic picture of you and me when we were both on TV at the same time, wearing our iconic hats. But when I grew up here since third grade, but I'm from Northwest Indiana, so I remember watching TV in the ABC sevens and
Mhm.
WGN in the Chicago market. Then we came here, and at some point I decided I wanted to do TV. But over the years, um, I have had people to look at and say, I want to do it that way, or no, I hate that person's style. And so in my delivery, there's some Bob Donaldson, there's some Russ McQuaid, there's some different things of people that I've picked up over the years. I had that, but where did you get yours from? Because yours is unique in itself.
I came out of Detroit. My old man was a cop in Detroit for 30 years.
Okay.
So it starts there. I also, came to be in the 1970s. So I was influenced by Hunter Thompson and the Rolling Stone and underground FM radio, where I started back in the day
Mm-hmm.
in college. I did radio comedy with Tim Allen.
Really?
Yeah, in the 1970s. Yeah, Tim Allen and I did radio comedy. We were all pretty funny. He was about a half a beat funnier,
Mhm.
which is why he's in Hollywood and a millionaire, and I'm, well, talking to you.
And still a millionaire problem.
Mm. So, went to Denver in the 80s, where I was a bit of a cowboy.
Mhm.
Came here, and let's face it, this is the Midwest, and things move a little slower
Mhm.
here, but it's friendlier and it's
Mhm.
not as abrupt or abrasive as the big city. But when I came here in '88, that was during my Serpico phase. I mean, I had long hair and a beard. I
Mhm.
was riding with the Narcs. We were kicking indoors. I was doing stories of riding with the narcs in this town, chasing people down, and then being on radio. I could look like that, and then by the time I got into TV, and you can see from that video, back in the day when I walked into TV, I
Mhm.
had the hair and the beard and the hat, and a guy, another station said to me, he goes, "Man, you must be good if they're going to let you on TV looking like that." Um, but then also, I'm a big fan of Humphrey Bogart
Okay.
and film noir in those 40s detective movies. And Bogart in Casablanca, man, he's got the hat and the trench coat, and
Mhm.
that is a classic look,
Mhm.
and I like it, and it's comfortable. But I also looked around. I said, you know what? Nobody's using that look.
Mhm.
If I put that on, maybe it's McGruff the crime dog, but if I put that on, especially on TV, that's that iconic look. People are going to take one look at that and they're going to go, man, I can tell you who that guy is from across the street. I was driving through downtown yesterday and some guy's honking his horn, yelling at me from another car. He
Mhm.
recognized me from another car.
Mhm.
Um, so that's where the look comes from. As far as the style, that comes from growing up in the 70s and reading Hunter Thompson, even some early Geraldo Rivera, not the
Okay.
caricature that he became later,
Mhm.
but also it was aggressive Dan Rather and not being afraid to go and ask that question. But it also comes from being a good writer. And the way you become a good writer is you become a good reader. And so, of course, I would absorb, because back then a lot of stuff was written,
Mhm.
and you do read. People now don't read, so they don't have that personality. It's like going to McDonald's for a great meal. When's the last time anybody ever had a great meal at McDonald's? St. Elmo's, it ain't,
Mhm. Mhm.
And if people live by reading and sending text messages and on social media, you don't get the full understanding of the love and the beauty of the language that you get from the reading. And if you have that, then you're able to translate it. You're able to have that explanation when you talk with people, to be a storyteller. And that's where that all came from. So that was the development of the style over the years. And then in the early years, in the 90s at Fox 59, see, we were one of the first local Fox TV
Mhm.
news affiliates
Mhm.
in 91. And then when I came on in 93, a lot of Fox affiliates didn't have news departments until 95, when Fox Network got NFL football.
Mhm.
And then they got NFL football, and then all these general managers and news directors stood up and said, "Oh man, we're going to become a full-fledged affiliate. We're going to have to really step up." So people were actually in the Fox world were looking to us
Mhm.
to see, how do you do news on a local level as a Fox affiliate? Well, all news back then at the other three stations was pretty staid, same thing, press conference, legislature, very boring, vanilla.
Mhm.
At Fox, with a couple of very talented videographers here, we started doing it almost MTV style. We were doing some outrageous stuff. Our video and editing tricks were very pleasing to look at. We started putting in some music to it. Plus, it also came over to our style of reporting and how we were going to go out and cover stories. It's like the Rolling Stone philosophy
Mhm.
of Rolling Stone won't necessarily break the first story, but when it gets to the story a month later, forget about it. You might as well never do that story again, because they're going to take you inside the story and show you the background and cover it from a different angle with more incisive look at it, which is what I do on my Facebook page. On my Facebook page, I always write about the story I did that day, but I
Mhm.
tell you the story behind the
You do.
story of how we went out and got that story, or what was left unsaid on TV. And of course, I followed up with song lyrics.
Mhm.
So it's all those elements coming together. It's rock and roll, it's film noir, it's an anti establishment attitude. it's video tricks, it's the imagery, it's the proper environment. Because after a while, I became this animal that was like, well, you can't control him and you can't tell him what to do, so you might as well just let him do his thing till he drops more F-bombs on TV. And so that is how we were able to develop that and put that together. But as I say, after Donaldson, Wilkes, and Chris Wright go, there aren't going to be any more like this, and it's going to become very homogenized and generic because that is safe, and homogenized and generic and safe doesn't scare managers and doesn't scare corporate.
Correct. And I know
However, it's the type of thing that people latch onto out in the field because it looks different, because it is different, because it has some personality. Once everything becomes homogenized and safe, then people shrug their shoulders and they don't have that personal identification for it. That's why people let you. I'm always stunned and amazed at the people that let us into their houses to let them go sit on their couches, who invite us in. Why would they do that on the worst day of their life? Because they trust you and they need a friend right then. And you've proven over the years that you can be trusted and you're a decent guy.
And I can attest to that just from in the different markets that I have gone. I will say the hats in some way comes from you. But wherever I've gone, I go out and I usually have on a hat too, sometimes a Kango or a fedora, and people have recognized me just from that. Just like I saw the hat, so I knew it was you. So they come over and they talk and just those different things. But I've had one news director who will remain nameless who did not like that at all.
Me too. Oh yeah, me too. And you know what? He left, and I'm still here.
And that too. They're gone.
And not only did he leave, he went to a smaller market. Let me point that out.
Well,
I guess they don't wear hats in that market.
Well, the one who said that for me is gone as well. So I was like, hey, my thought was, it's been working for McQuaid down the street, and I've been doing it since before I got here. I'm going to keep doing it. Russ, let's take a quick commercial break real quick, and we'll come back. We'll talk some more. You're watching Fox 59 tonight on Fox 59 Now.